Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, when's the last time we did a doubleheader? I don't remember.
You and I have.
Yeah, yeah. Oh well, this we did a bunch of them in the past, so yeah.
Yeah.
Just recently, I guess
Mhm.
I've gotten rambly enough. I'm like I probably usually don't want to, but since we've gotten to season five Twilight Zones after doing four, the conversation seemed to be a little bit more streamlined. I don't know if that's good or bad, but we don't
I
ramble as
mean,
much.
well, I think just generally really excited to talk about Twilight Zone. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. No, I'm
um,
just as a, I'm sitting there, I'm posting a podcast. I'm just noticing, oh, they were like an hour last when we were doing season four. Now they're down to like 40 minutes, which, that's fine. The one
yeah.
person I will not double headers with is when Captain Mike comes on. Like he's going to talk for more than an hour, so I'm not
Oh
going to double
gosh.
header with him, which
Oh,
that's fine, that's fine. But I'm just like I would know like we're probably going to ramble for a while, so I will not try and do two with him at one time.
I don't have that gift. I can't just, you know, like sit in the closet and smell my own farts.
Right.
I'm really,
Well, you don't
I
do
have
that?
the listener in
Everybody
mind
does
too
that.
much.
Everybody does that. No, I don't. Dear listener, I never think about you. Because that was the thing when I started podcasting. Because Luke was like, "Hey, let's do a podcast." I'm like, I can't just sit and ramble, which it turns out I can just sit and ramble. So maybe he noticed that. But I could sit and
What?
ramble about movies and music.
Well, I think podcast listeners want that,
Yeah.
because the more like scripted it sounds, the less it's a podcast and more it's actually an audiobook.
Yeah, I mean, I could go in and like, well, with four podcasts, I'm not going to. But if I went in and got little, people talking over each other and stuff, I could make it sound a little more professional. But I don't have the
Yeah.
time or
Well,
motivation.
when I get into a new podcast, whether or not I like the people I'm listening to, because you're essentially hanging out with them, is
Mm.
what makes the difference if I stay or not, regardless of the subject matter.
Yeah. Weirdly, I think I'd have trouble doing a music podcast.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
sure
could
how
do.
I do that. I'm not sure. I mean, I dig music, but I'm like, I don't know how much I could like ramble about it in a proper podcast form.
You'd really need to do like this and narrow your subject down. Like, you know what I mean? Pick someone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But and I don't listen to a lot of music podcasts. In fact, when I do, it's usually classical music because I want someone to explain to me the construction of a symphony or something, you know?
Yeah, I get that. I I tend to just want to hear something, but it's that way with books that I read too. I'm all nonfiction, and the
That's pretty
more
much where
like
I am, yeah.
yeah, the more niche the subject matter, the more kind of specific it's getting, the more I like it because I'm expecting just like a deep dive, as they call it.
I'm actually curious what's on my Kindle at the moment. I'm gonna grab my iPad. Oh, sciatic nerve. Oops. Hmm. Yeah, there we go. Okay. I know I'm reading a history of film music, but we're getting right into the sound era now. It's a long book.
That sounds cool. What's the name of it?
Hold on, I'll give you specifics in a moment on that as I load up my Kindle. Like it is, I think it's written by an academic in England or whatever, so it's not
Oh
like
yeah,
it's not a
but I'm
breezy read.
used.
It's
I'm
a history of film music, a history of film music by Mervyn Cook. I just read
yeah.
Nicholas Meyer's autobiography about his movies.
Let's see.
Uh,
Yeah, I see that. Well, I don't mind those.
Sea
I've got
People, The
some.
Puzzle of Polynesia.
That's great. That's what I mean. Like, I don't mind like a dry kind of academic presentation of something because like the weirder it is, like I have one about Russ Meyer movies that's like that.
I,
It's hilarious.
I read a history of the first 10 years of MTV. Oh, here's one that was actually good. The cover
I read
looks
that
like
too.
garbage, but yeah.
It's I Want My MTV is the name of
Yes,
it.
yes, yes,
Yeah, that's
yes.
a good one.
Yeah. Have
The
you
one
read
about
this one?
Nickelodeon's good too.
I don't know that one. I'll have to check it out.
It's called Slimed.
One I just read that was pretty fun was Apocalypse on the Set, Nine Disastrous Film Productions by Ben Taylor. That was a fun read.
Ooh, wait a minute. Nine does that what is it?
Apocalypse on the Set, Nine Disastrous Film Productions. And let me look at the contents. I'll tell you what I mean, you can guess some of them, you
Yes, yeah, I was gonna say I got
know.
a pretty good idea what a few of them are.
We've got
Yeah.
Twilight Zone the movie is the first one. Um,
Jeez, that one's in. I got this one called Hollywood Hex that's about cursed
mm,
quote unquote movies, and
Heaven's
that's in there.
Gate, The Adventures of
Yep.
Baron Munchausen, Apocalypse
Hmm.
Now, of course,
Hmm.
Fitzcarraldo, uh, Pulgasari, the North Korean monster movie,
Wow.
the
What was the
Crow.
English name?
Oh, of the Korean movie?
Yeah.
I don't think it has one. I think it's just Pulgasari.
Okay, then this might not be the one I'm thinking of. You
The
said The
Crow,
Crow.
The Abyss, and Waterworld are the.
Yeah, I gotta put Waterworld in there. I'm surprised Cutthroat Island's not in there. And
Yeah, good point. I recently rewatched Waterworld. Um, and when's the last time you watched Waterworld?
not that recently. Dan got the Arrow Blu-ray of it and was talking to me about it, how it went over with his his kid. And so, no, Waterworld, there was only one for me. It was I didn't see it in the theater, but I rented it.
I saw it at
Um,
Linux, I remember.
yeah, I just didn't really have any. I just never been a Costner guy, but
Yeah, that's a thing. But here's the thing rewatching. I was like, the first third is pretty good. The last third is pretty good. The middle is boring as shit, and Kevin Costner's being horrible to those two ladies. So it's just
mm,
him being a bastard to the girl and what's her name on the boat for like on his trawler for like 30 minutes.
all I really remember is Dennis Hopper. I mean, I like. I mean, not Dennis Hopper the person, obviously, but Dennis Hopper the actor to me is will
Oh
always
yeah,
be
him going
interesting.
down with the Exxon Valdez, that's great. Like I said, the last third of the movie's actually pretty good, and the first third's pretty good, and the it's just got this very, very soggy middle, pun
Mm,
not deserving.
yeah, I would imagine it could have been shorter.
Uh, or just better edited, or have a maybe a rewrite in the middle. But yeah, I guess there, that's you got Coster ego. I mean, he's kind of like I guess he directed that one like Spielberg directed Poltergeist, sort of, because him and Kevin Reynolds would keep making movies and then hate each other by the end of it. And then, like, a few years later, they'd make another one anyway. It's like, what do you expect?
Yeah, God, that Poltergeist conversation. Well, Poltergeist is another one of the cursed movies just because of the amount of deaths that were happening
But
during the.
that's not an apocalypse on the set, right? That's a
No, I mean the closest
lingering
they got
curse
was
movie.
yeah, Toby Hooper was a little too into cocaine.
Yeah, this is the early 80s. What do you expect? They had lots of neon around.
Yeah, no, none of those special. We wouldn't have Gremlins without cocaine. I
Yeah.
think I've told you and Luke that before.
Popeye the movie.
Yo, I love Popeye the movie.
I love Popeye the movie too. They literally flew a plane of cocaine chasing their plane.
They did, but God, I love Popeye.
Henry Nilsson was on set. There was no reason for him to be there except for the cocaine.
Mm-mm, no, oh, and I love his soundtrack. Oh God, it's just yeah, Popeye. Malta would be a one of those places I'd really want to visit, the Popeye Village,
I
I
was
think.
Google Earthing it a few days ago, actually. The Popeye Village.
I mean, as far as I know, it's like a tourist destination. Like they keep it up. I
Yeah, it's still
mean,
open. They have a couple restaurants. I mean, it's not, Disney level or anything by any means, but they got, some dude dressed up as Popeye who apparently
yeah.
also serves you your hamburger. So, because
No, that's not right.
they just have like from my understanding, I heard a report of the people in character are also doing some of the other things like gift shops and things. So
Oh,
you'll
I'm
buy your
sure, but
souvenirs from Olive Oil.
yeah, but Wimpy should be in the hamburger place.
I don't know if they had a Wimpy hamburger place. That seems like an obvious one, doesn't it?
I know. What? Okay. Yeah, Popeye's just got a can of spinach.
Whenever I bring up my Google Earth, it sticks me in the middle of Arkansas. It's boring.
Isn't it supposed to like approximate your location?
Well, on my mobile devices it does, but for some reason this one gives me Arkansas. Oh, Malta's so tiny. What can you eat at the
Yes.
Popeye Village?
Mm.
Let's see. Seafarer, hamburger, that makes sense.
Mm.
I want to see Wimpy serving the hamburger though. That's a
It's
pizza. The first image was a pizza. There's a hamburger,
wow.
but I don't see any people. Um, Popeye Grills. It says barbecue. I don't know what that means in Malta though.
Please
Um,
be octopus. Pulpo.
well, it looks like a fish burger. Uh, and then there's Tipsy and Sons Winery. That's a good title.
Hmm.
Tipsy and Sons. But yeah, it looks like and it looks a little bit run down, but I mean, I guess it should because it's Popeye Village. So that's the nice thing about it. If it looks a little run down, it still works because that's what it should look like.
It's just typically movie locations that were built like of that scale are mostly all destroyed, run down, or
It's not that big though. I mean, it's about a what it looks like it's a 100-meter walk down the main drag of Popeye Village. So it's not that
sure.
big, but I
Yeah.
mean, you'd probably want to go to Malta for something else as well, but I'm sure they have other stuff. Oh, there's a
I just
splashy fun water park.
I think just knowing that it exists and it's still like, getting fresh coats of paint and all this just to me it just blows me away. It's a little haunts me just a little bit.
Mm.
I think in a weird way.
Do you have a weird Google Earth addiction, or is that just me?
I went through it when it was new. Yeah, I went back through our neighborhood and was looking at houses and, looking at places that I've lived and
Oh, I'm screwing around Google Earth all the time, finding tiny islands in the Pacific, that sort of stuff.
oh, okay. So yeah, mine was more just a nostalgic kick.
No, no, I'll go looking at the weirdest places I can find, like looking for the most northern settlement in Canada, that sort of thing.
Ah, I yeah, I mean I wouldn't say I'm not interested in that.
I I'd been looking intently at Greenland a few weeks ago, and now it's in the news for stupid reasons.
Yeah.
But now I
Oof.
know. Now I'm familiar. I'm familiar with Greenland. I know the layout of Nuuk.
Right.
Yeah. Let's. Oh, you are on a night call. I'm not. I'm on a morning call. But
Yeah, I'm gonna heat up dinner as soon as we're done with this.
okay, 5-second gap, and we'll do it.
Okay.
Welcome to Time Enough Podcast. It's where we take telephone calls from all of the episodes of The Twilight Zone, typically at night. This is Matt
Hmm.
here. Week 2 for Andrew, but it doesn't feel that long, does it?
No, it doesn't. It
No.
feels like just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you are on a night call for night call. I'm on a morning call, so that's how it works out. Do we say
Hmm.
names? Did I say? I don't even remember.
Yes, you did.
Okay. My brain's hemorrhaging now.
Fine.
Uh, also, you said you've seen this episode a bunch of times. I think I've seen it once. I guess you get it mixed up a little bit with what's the one where grandma's calling from the grave to kill Bill Mummy?
Yeah, this long distance
Long distance call. It's easy to mix
call.
it up with that a little
Yeah.
bit. So older ladies and not that Gladys Cooper is in that one. She's in this one, but the other
Yeah,
one
no.
she was in was it's in my trivia. I'll say it in a minute.
I was gonna say, don't give it away now.
Yeah, don't give the trivia away. You keep it close to the chest. Yeah.
That's right.
But yes, yes, yes. This one seems to have your interest. So if you want to prelude that.
I do because Night Call is everything that inspires me about the Twilight Zone. For those who've never listened to an episode that I'm on before, all the way to the end, where I talk about Gonzoriffic, my friends and I make movies together, and as just you could imagine, since it's a hobby, we not a lot of money is involved here, and so Twilight Zone for me, in its bare bones storytelling, the more economic that the episodes are, the more lo-fi they are, the less characters involved, the less sets involved, the more I love them. And Night Call is, if you were to take a screenshot from a random scene from this movie, it's gonna probably be um, Gladys. Is it Gladys Cooper
Yeah, that's
who
right.
plays Elva? It's gonna be her sitting in the bed on the phone because
Okay.
that's what mostly happens.
I have her pictured in a chair on the phone, but she did that too. So.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be a medium close up of her with the phone to her ear because that's mainly what the episode is. But it is one of the most chilling and unforgettable Twilight Zones episodes for me. And it didn't surprise me that it was done by a horror movie director. Because and I own a few of the movies by Tournier. Um, his it's just so expertly done. I mean, it's what Twilight Zone. It's one of those where you could watch it cold, or show it to someone who's never seen it, and they will get the same chill up their spine as the person that watched it during its original air date. It's just, to me, it's iconic.
Yeah, I
It
guess
just
the only
really is.
change to do this one, if you were to remake it, if they do another Twilight Zone, she'd have a smartphone that she would know how to use properly.
No, no, and instead of it being her, it would be someone like pretending to be, but they really just wanted her PIN number.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is your grandson. I need some money.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in jail, Grandma.
Do you think she would fall for the Nigerian prince scheme?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I
The
guess she's telling the love of her life to go away, so
Oh man, God, what a punch that ending. Oh, men need to watch this. I don't. I it just. Anyway, we should do the thing.
Okay, I will get into the trivia for this. The original air date was February 7th, 1964. What's next week's episode? Rod told me it's going to be Valentine's Day. I hope we get a Valentine's Day episode.
Oh,
Oh,
the
it
one
is
after
from
this.
Agnes with
It's
Love.
from
Yeah.
Agnes with
Okay. Yeah.
Love.
Okay. They matched the date. Good for them.
Hmm.
But this is February 7th. Okay. Script is by Zone stalwart Richard Matheson.
Yeah.
Say the director's name again.
Uh-oh, hang on. Hold
Jacques
on.
Tourneau.
Trine.
Tournay.
Hold on.
See, I knew I couldn't
We're gonna have
pronounce
to
it.
pause the recording. I'm sorry. I'm getting a phone.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
No, you should tell me. I'll say that guy's name one more time. Jacques Tourne-
Trine.
Tournay. I keep on saying Tourneau. Tournay. Okay, here's that edit point.
Or it's Tune. Tuno.
To
Yeah.
know, to know,
I don't know.
to
We're not gonna get
know.
it right. It's one of those things when you see it, you hear it in your head, and you don't say it out loud that often.
Yeah.
But whatever I said, Tournay or Tuno,
I'll
either
avoid
one.
saying Jacques Tourneau. I'll avoid that. Which I just, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Tourneau is what I would say.
Jacques Tourneau directed. He was a horror guy, as you said, helming Cat People. I Walked with a Zombie and The Leopard Man and Out of the Past for RKO, Night of the Demon for Columbia. Recently, we were trying to figure out where the first jump scare came from, and I think we did settle on Cat People as having the first ever jump scare.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, it is one. Criterion's been putting out his movies ever since doing um that Val Lewton uh Cat People. There's right now, I think it just came out. I have it. It's I Walked with a Zombie, and maybe the Leopard Man's with it. There's two movies on the disc. But this is like 44, something like that, mid 40s. But yeah, he was a horror guy. He ended up doing my favorite Vincent Price movies, Comedy of Terrors.
oh,
Where
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's in there with Karloff and Basil
Yeah, that
Rathbone.
was part of MGM's caught DVD collection. I remember that.
God, that movie's great. Oh, it's great. The writing is just, it's excellent.
I guess I'll move on into Gladys Cooper, who played Elva Keene. She received Oscar noms for her roles in The Song of Bernadette, My Fair Lady, and Now Voyager. In The Zone, we've already seen her in Nothing in the Dark and Passage on the Lady Anne. And she's in a bed in Nothing in the Dark too. She's a bed actress by this point. Okay.
Mm,
Which, to be fair, I keep hearing actors say when you have to lie down through an entire shoot or play dead or something, it might look like a comfortable position, but it's not going to be comfortable in 4 hours.
No, every movie that they're in, just imagine in those final scenes, they're reaching the height of emotion due to hemorrhoids.
Yeah, really. Or bed sores elsewhere
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. Either way.
Margaret Phillips was Nora Marlowe. She would later appear in 27 episodes of The Waltons, headed by Earl Hamner Jr., who did not write this episode. She
Mm-mm.
also showed up as the housekeeper in North by Northwest, as well as roles in the Thomas Crown Affair and Westworld, as in the movie, not the more recent show.
Yeah.
Miss Finch was played by Martine Bartlett. Film buffs may recognize her as the very bad mommy in the film Sybil. No, and there's the doggy. Okay.
She was gonna cry and make noise.
Okay, I just wonder if she was responding to the bad mommy. I don't know. Um,
No, it's just a regular asshole.
well, let's see. Oh yes. Well, with dog, I guess you can give us an opening narration.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll use the dog's head to wipe my teeth off with. Because y'all, I always do Serling. It's easier if you dry your teeth. Let's see, this is a long one here. Here we go. Miss Elva Keene lives alone on the outskirts of London Flats, a tiny rural community in Maine. Up until now, the pattern of Miss Keene's existence has been that of lying in her bed or sitting in a wheelchair, reading books, listening to a radio, eating, napping, taking medication, and waiting for something different to happen. Miss Keene doesn't know it yet, but her period of waiting has just ended, where something different is about to happen to her, has in fact already begun to happen, via two most unaccountable telephone calls in the middle of a stormy night. Telephone calls routed directly through the Twilight Zone.
All right. Yep, your
So,
dog got you slightly off your game, but that's fun.
yeah, also when it gets to be a really long intro like that, teeth just naturally don't stay dry, and then you lose Serling. Um, yeah, yeah,
Mm.
bum, 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 bum. But here he's telling you already what's the calls are coming or routed through the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, so well, that
We'll get to it,
we'll
but
get to it, but that seems it could just be some heavy breathing dude on the other side of town that's really playing the game. We don't know, but we'll trust Rod on it, I guess.
yeah.
What's your hobby? My hobby's taking medication. That doesn't. Just it sounds like they're listing like her hobbies or listening to radio, eating, napping, taking medication. So,
Sneezing and pooping simultaneously.
huh, huh. Is that possible?
Who knows? You've got the sphincter that everyone thinks about, but you got the inner sphincter as well.
Yeah.
That sometimes at a certain point, depending on how well you've treated it, just says screw it.
I I think you'd be more likely to sneeze and shart. Do I have to edit that? Is that word obscene? I don't even know.
No, that's fine. I heard a radio DJ friend of mine used it today.
Okay, but yeah, yeah, yeah. Give us 30 years and we'll see who's laughing now.
That's right, really is. Well, it all depends. But
Hopefully the medications we'll be taking as hobbies will be better by then.
God, I hope so.
But yeah, it does seem like the Twilight Zone's go-to old lady is Gladys Cooper at this point. I guess she likes coming back. She's back for thirds, making her one of the more prolific Twilight Zone actors.
Well, she is, just like I was mentioning a couple minutes ago, this is mostly her and mostly on her face. You've got to have somebody really great in order to like, even though these are 22-minute-ish episodes, you're when it comes to there's really only two characters plus this very minimal voice, and the operator. So, you got to have somebody that has the chops to carry this stuff, and it's so much of it is voice and um face expression, and um they've got to be able to sustain that stuff. If the more she seems like she believes it, the more the audience is going to believe it, and that's partly why to me it's so creepy. It's her.
You know what's also interesting here? I'm just looking at my trivia again, and we have three actors, and they're all female, which for early 60s or mid 60s television, I guess we're at this point, but that seems like something that, yeah, people complain now when the acolyte shows up, and I'm like, where are the dudes?
Well, back then you didn't have this like prideful ignorance or anti-intellectualism, then you didn't have the Bechdel test either, but this thing passes it.
Oh yeah, yeah, easily. I was just thinking like for 1964, actually, I was like, and I didn't notice that till just now, by the way. That was the other thing. I wrote the trivia without noticing that. So
Yeah, yeah, it's something you'd see more on stage than on television because they'd be worried about, oh no, will men watch this? But I don't think about that when I watch this. I think of how absolutely creepy well, that ending is just a uh knock you on your ass ending,
do
if I
you
can
th
say that.
do you think they could have done more backstory, or should they have done more backstory? I would just start like sit here thinking like, oh, was she like drunk driving in 1932 and killed the guy, kind of, or you know?
She just was reckless, I think. And they were arguing, you know, and I think she, and I hope I'm not mixing this up with some disturbing documentary I've recently watched. But I think the thing was that he wanted to drive and she insisted.
You
And
drive.
yeah, and so then she feels that guilt as though she'd caused it. I think when you know things, when aspects of that backstory are revealed, it all is so expertly structured to where um they sustain that chill, so it's not a snap ending gotcha, but it's more of like, oh no, oh no. It just kind of builds like that. So there's a great deal of dread. It's a wind up, right? And
Yeah,
then
and
the
I was
punch.
watching this at midnight last night, which that's the right time to watch this. This is not a
Oh
good
God.
afternoon Twilight Zone.
No, you want
Gotta
to,
watch this one at night.
yeah. I mean, that's when the Twilight Zone is, the door swings all the way open.
What is a good cold light of day Twilight Zone? I guess some of the more sci-fi ones can do that, but oh, the Hitchhiker.
Yeah,
There we go. Hitchhiker is all mostly daytime, and
that's
that's
a
creepy
great,
as hell.
yeah. Yeah, that really is. Some of them just play better during the day. Some are really kind of somber and you can easily kind of drift off too. That's why it's one of the greatest shows ever made.
But yeah, this is an extreme late night episode. I mean, that's basically in the title, right? So.
Yeah, if I was making a mixtape that was just for playing at night of Twilight Zone episodes, this would be in there.
Right. Yeah, do we live in a utopia now that we don't have landlines? Do you still have a landline?
I
Just
Yes, I do. And the reason I do is because when I bought the house in 2004, our service we bought was a what they called a price for life. And that was the landline, and at the time, the very basic internet that we had. Now we still have the landline, and we have the fiber internet service, and I am not paying any more than I was
that's nice. Yeah.
in 20 years. So pretty great.
In my house here in
Um,
Japan, we finally got, or they got, I mean, I never used it anyway, right? But they got rid of it maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. My folks in Atlanta, they still have a landline, which is good because sometimes the credit card company wants to call that phone to verify. So,
yeah, I still remember your phone number from there.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. It is weird. Like I don't know, I can't remember my phone number now, my cell phone, but I remember my home number. I remember your number too. Yeah, across the
Right,
street,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a 404 and a 770.
Right.
And 404 there are no more numbers. That doesn't exist. You can't get a 404 number. And I
Area
think
codes
they
if you're not following us.
yeah. Um,
Atlantans know, but other people might be like, take a second there.
but that was the
Um,
thing about the landline. You didn't before there was like call waiting and call screening and answering machines. You didn't know who's calling you.
well, I gotta think, my cell phone doesn't ring unexpectedly that often, but
Mhm.
in Japan, it's like, oh, if I take this call that I don't know where it's coming from, I might and be in for an awkward conversation of me speaking broken Japanese.
Yeah, you have good reason. I have a work line and just my personal line, and I tend to not answer the personal line if it's not coming from someone who's already in the contacts or doesn't have some way that identifies when they call you, like a doctor's office.
Yeah, like if it's in the morning of a work day, I might answer because that might be work. So,
Yeah, but the landline, what do we use it for? Um, the technology now with the phones is pretty much to the point where now it pre-screens the calls and diverts the ones that are not important. It doesn't even ring
oh,
unless it's
okay.
a yeah.
Maybe that's what she needed in this episode. What calls do we get? Didn't my house get getting calls for Ronald, I remember. You probably remember that.
I do, yeah. I did the Freddie phone. You and I would always call each other Christmas Day to talk about what presents that we got.
Oh, right, right, of course.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking the wrong number calls though, where it kept getting
Oh
the
gosh,
Ronalds.
wrong number calls. Oh man. Um, yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think of anyone that actually kind of springs to mind, but wow, that's something I haven't thought about in a very long time. But there's sorry, wrong number, you know.
Right, right. So yeah, that's one of the reasons if I do answer my phone in Japan, it's not telling me where it's come from. It's a wrong number, right? Now it's like super confusing because they're not expecting to be talking to an American. And yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I
like,
think now the equivalent of that is getting a text from someone who's got a new phone that used to be somebody else's,
hmm,
and or they've, someone else has given them their number, but with one digit off and it's yours, you know, because you'll get a text and you'll just be like, I don't know who this is. And so that may be the closest thing we have now is but we'll still get like it'll still tell you the number. Because the
right.
thing in Night Call is um she she has no life whatsoever. So any sort of thing that's going on, and she's, a very sad person. And so any little annoyance is going to be amplified times 10. And any small event is going to be amplified times 10. And so to have these phone calls that won't quit, well, she's already distressed from this awful thing that happened to her. And so she gets extremely emotional and upset, as someone that's elderly now probably would. So I don't think it's super outdated. It's just a technological difference.
Yeah, I actually I do have an elderly aunt who lives in Maine, although she's a lot more active than this lady.
Yeah, if it's the one I'm thinking of, if she's still around, she would have to be.
Right. So, but it did throw me off because it's London flats, right? And then, Gladys Cooper has the mid-Atlantic sort of accent thing going on. So
Yes.
I
Yeah.
for the first 2 minutes, I thought we were actually in England. And then finally Rod's like, Maine. I'm like, wait, what, huh? Everybody should have been talking like this and it.
No, and my movie, the Gonzoriffic movie, I'm in the basement, which was on our very, oh gosh, I don't even know which mixtape that was. It was one of our first, because we that one came out in 2008. Yeah, we made Blood Witch and I'm in the Basement, and oh, it was on the Cannibal Sisters one. Okay, so in that show, we have a repeat in that movie, we have repeated phone calls coming from a strange voice. And in one of the little interludes, we make a black and white clip, and I'm doing Night Call. It's a direct reference to that. She's like, "Who's on the line? Hello, Johnny." Like she's really hamming it up, and I even showed her Night Call. It was Teresa that did it. But she's in like, we lit it just like I tried to approximate Night Call in that movie, and it was a blast. I just really love it.
To be fair, this episode does have a few day calls as well. So,
Yeah, it does. Because I think even the gotcha, the twist, or whatever, the Twilight Zone snap. Um, I think that it takes place at night, right? The actual I can't even remember now. Damn, I knew I should have rewatched it.
well,
I just
like you
figured
said, it's so much like a, like one act play in a black box theater. It almost doesn't
Mhm.
matter if it's night or day.
No, it doesn't. It's just were you able to really hear those early calls when at first it sounds like she's hearing like a moaning almost.
Yeah, it just sounds like
Every
static at first. I was thinking like, the old trope of the heavy breather calls.
Right. But she wouldn't expect something like that. She wouldn't maybe even be aware of that. But she is tough. She's not they don't play her as an easily fooled person. She's really concerned and she's offering up things that it could be, and she's in touch with the phone company like the whole time, and just like, look, that's not what's happening. This is happening, and it happened again, and I heard this. So, um, you don't get the feeling that they're making fun of her because she's elderly. In fact, she's the one that's right about everything the whole time.
Yeah. Although it's depressing how decrepit I guess she is. She, may have some willpower, but she is falling apart because, she's
Yeah, she is. She's using a wheelchair, and it's doubtful whether she even gets around much in that, but she's her guilt has eaten her alive.
yeah, you get the feeling
And
she just sits there festering and doesn't say get out of the house or anything. And then I
Mhm.
was like seeing, I guess, when do retirement communities really kick in? What do old people do in 1964, you know?
is- I mean, if they're the one with the money, whatever they do or don't want.
Because it seems she's living alone with social services coming by. Or maybe does hire help. I don't know, but
I
I have
think
the
that's
impression she's kind of like more of a charity case at this point.
See, I never get that impression. I always thought she was well to do, and this was hired help that she
That could
pays
be the
for.
case. You've seen it more than I have, so.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think she may even say, "I don't pay you to come here at night," because I think the whole thing with the night calls is no one's there to help her at night. She's by herself.
Oh, maybe I just heard I don't pay you. So, it's just like how they say leave the door open versus don't close the
Hmm.
door because if you
Yeah,
don't, then you close
classic.
the door. Yeah. A little bit
Yeah.
of NLP there. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's the situation with her. I think she has money, but uh, it's more of just like the situation, and the person that plays the help is really great, tries to keep her grounded and tries to keep her kind of in reality and not getting too freaked out. And also the person that plays the operator, same thing. They're on the side of like logic, and so she's on the side of paranoia, and those are really good things to play against each other. To me, it's just classic Twilight Zone stuff.
Yeah, and discovering that your paranoia is correct is always kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, to be watching this for the first time. Wow.
Triple-edged sword. Well, I'm coming in. I mean, I think I've seen it before in the past, but I definitely didn't like remember specifics or beats. So you're asking about the earlier cause, and at first I was like, dude on the other side of the line sucks. Did sound like a dude. Like, I wasn't like sure like at first. So uh,
Yeah.
ghouls say what they want. So it did. I didn't pick up on it instantly.
Yeah, I my memory of it, and I apologize, listener, for not brushing up on Nightcall, but it's always in my rotation because now there's no place that really plays the marathon. I'm the marathon, so I get to decide like which one I want to see next. Um, and it's kind of like cherry picking if you're listening through an album or a playlist. And so for me, my memory is always that the phone call voice. Gradually becomes more discernible, gradually becomes more clear because at first there is the static, and then there's like a kind of moaning, a zombie kind of sound, or maybe I'm thinking that because if I know where they're coming from, or then it progresses to a sound of someone saying hello, hello. And she's saying hello, and so she starts to think, okay, the person can hear me, but I can hear the person, but I don't think they can hear me. But then the person actually starts to talk, and uh, it is on the verge of her recognizing them when the reveal happens.
Right, exactly. Although he's not playing this game very well. Maybe he's our dead betrothed. He's a little his plan's not very good, which I don't know how you work a plan from the great beyond. So, but
Well, if you're the great beyond and you died in a car wreck, who knows? You might just be a head and a pair of hands to the left.
right, right. But yeah, it's just like, oh, I always do what you say. You told me to go away. I'm going away. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, because he always kowtowed to whatever she wanted because she was the stronger personality, and that makes sense the way
yeah.
that it's been played, and so she feels bad, but she becomes like super angry in their last conversation, super, super angry. Don't call. Stop this. I've had enough. Go away.
I mean, that's what people would do with repeated calls, though,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah,
But
finally you get upset. I did it when my kid was really young. And we were getting a lot of spam calls, and I was answering a lot of calls just because when you have a young kid and my wife was commuting for work, and you're dealing with pediatricians and all this other stuff, you were in the habit of answering your phone. And plus, I was working from home for the first time as well, and so could have been a work call. And but the thing about the spam calls is once you pick up and they know there's a voice at the end of that line, they give it to all their buddies too, and so everyone knows there's a voice at the other end of that line. And I tried the not interested, hang up, and all the other ways you could. And I finally just lost it one day. You know how you are. You're a little sleep deprived as a new parent. And I cursed at him. And he was like, and he got raw. He was like, "You cursed at me in front of your family?" And I said, "I am holding a baby in my arm right now, telling you to boop boop." So that was I did go not ham, but I could have.
Mm.
My wife's uncle is up in age now, and he'll answer the phone every time it rings. Every time, no matter what. Then he'll talk to them, and they always go, "Dude, don't do that. Don't answer him. Hit the button." But nope. But he's like this lady, not a lot going on in life. And so, are we at the point now where we can talk about the discovery where these calls have actually been coming from?
Oh yeah, I feel like we have been, but yeah, I guess not explicitly, so go for it.
Yeah, so they find out that there is no possible way the calls could have been coming in because the phone line was actually down, and where the line was down was at the into the grave of this guy who she feels responsible for the death of um, all those years ago. And so it goes from her like being upset about the calls to like hoping he'll call. And you first think, well, of course, if the phone company has fixed this, now the whole thing's over. He's not gonna reach her. Um, but he does call, and she's really wants to talk to him, and is so like happy to hear from him. He's just, you told me to go away, so that's what I'm gonna do. Oops. So the moral of this Twilight Zone episode really is, ladies, don't be bossy.
I
Terrible.
don't think that's what.
It's terrible of me to say, but like I'm sitting here thinking about it now. I was like, what were they really telling? Don't nag because he'll die. What if he dies and you were nagging?
Yeah, I guess it's a. I wonder if it would help to have a flashback scene with him, but then you don't want to hire someone else to be a young Gladys Cooper, I think, and you don't want to have someone young playing and then put crappy age makeup on her for most of the episode. So I guess we don't
No,
need it, is the point, but yeah,
he remains a voice, because he has to only be that.
right.
It's so, so crucial because so much of the story is
No, I
tell
realized how
instead of
bad that
show.
note was as I was saying it. That's why I was kind of trailing off while I was saying it. It's like,
No,
that's a
but
bad
in a newer
idea.
one, because that's usually what the language of flashbacks is. You get this whole the picture comes into focus, as they say, and so yeah, that would really kind of nail it home, and that would be what they would do now. But they couldn't afford that back then. They're like, Sterling, you got one old lady, you got one phone, and you got one bed. Enjoy.
They couldn't afford to put a polar bear on the island and have all those flashbacks back in Twilight Zone 64.
No, there's not even a phone. Like when she's talking to the operator, there are no other operators in the shot. Like there's not, I don't think even a telephone switchboard in the shot. I think it's just somebody with headphones on, maybe not even that. So,
I have a feeling that London Flats is not a giant town.
yeah,
One operator may be correct around there.
yeah. So, um, when the reality comes through that this call was coming from beyond the grave, you're not even in the realm of science fiction. You are in the realm of straight up and down horror, which when people ask me, well, what is horror? It's the supernatural.
See, I would go with supernatural because in the end, it's not really horror. The voice sounds creepy as it's coming into focus. They visit a graveyard, but the end result is more the tragic flaw sort of thing, right?
I mean, yeah, we're categorizing things. We're both talking about fantasy, and so sci-fi and horror are just offshoots of fantasy. But I think this needle moves more toward to scare you or to disturb you
Right,
than
it's the
anything
director.
else.
That's his directing vocabulary, is
Yeah,
that's how it's
exactly.
gonna feel,
Yeah.
right? If
And
we
so
had
yeah, as a horror fan, I'm mostly interested in the more horrific or frightening episodes of the Twilight Zone, and this to me is in the top of just horrific one. I mean, this I saw when I was a kid. This was always in the marathons, and that really stayed with me. I'm like, oh God, there's no way to explain it. I love it when there's no explanation. It's why Lucio Fulci's movies scare me so much, is because the logic is not logic. It's like the logic of nightmares. I just the idea that a call could come from a grave, just oh, dude, it shows you, tells you just enough to creep you out. And so
right. But once she
I
works
would
it
have,
out, she wants that call from the grave. That's where the horror
Mhm,
kind of like, you know, falls out for me. It becomes more of a depressing romance in that case. Because, like you said, the
mhm.
end, she wants the call. It's not horror anymore. Now that it's been understood, it's not horrific.
Yeah, there was a acquaintance of mine, an actor in like a friend's movies, who in real life she was really, really hung up on an ex-boyfriend who they were broken up at the time, but he passed away from cancer. And her social media was full of stuff about love from beyond the grave. And I remember she posted one art that someone had made of a woman asleep next to like a tombstone in a grave, a living woman. And so I just like I thought of that just in this conversation because well, it does become just a really, I mean, it is sad. Equally, I think, frightening and sad. I just get any communication from the other side, which we'll have to talk about where we think what will we think happened Twilight Zone wise. But the beyond, at a point where no one can logic stops, and it's just creepy. I love it.
We could start peeling out those questions, I guess. And
Okay.
we've already been discussing, I guess, who went into the Twilight Zone. It's easy when there's only three actors. I'm sure it wasn't the operator, so.
No, she was not up directing the calls from because um, Rod says what?
He says something
Rod's,
or other.
yeah, a rather painful lesson in responsibility transmitted from the Twilight Zone.
Right. So the encounter of the Twilight Zone is now I'm want to say Gladys and can I Elva. Elva. That's the female
Well,
version of
she
Elvis,
was
is it?
she was communicating with the Twilight Zone or via the Twilight Zone, um, with that late husband or boyfriend or whoever he was.
I get
Yeah,
the impression
Brian.
fiance. They say fiance, or
Yeah,
did I just find that?
fiance. So
Okay.
I didn't think they were married, but it was like an almost. They were going to be classic.
Right.
Um,
There
so
we
the
go.
Twilight
Brian
Zone.
died a week before they were to be married. It's listed in the plot description.
So Brian was the Twilight Zone. If he wasn't there, the Twilight Zone was his conduit. Like it was his way of Twilight Zone was helping him. So I think I would just go, well, Brian's in the Twilight Zone or a Twilight Zone adjacent.
Yeah, he's got to grow an ectoplasmic backbone though. So
Right.
like his plan almost worked.
Hmm.
But then he just kind of like, oh, I don't know. And that's
Yeah.
that's where
Oh,
I'm like, yeah.
yeah. The little girl lost, right? Remember, she was. It showed the Twilight Zone.
Right, right. That's
So
where
that's where
he Brian's just sitting around in that space,
that thing. Yeah.
making phone calls and then giving up on him. But yeah, I mean, Elva's obviously we see her on screen, we see her acting, so she's the one interfacing with the Twilight Zone via
Hmm.
telephone. So
Yeah, and maybe she'll go there when she dies.
yeah, but we're talking about if she deserves this particular situation, uh, which I mean, I guess Brian did not deserve to die a younger death. We can probably, I mean, she's
Mm-mm.
regretful about that.
Yeah.
Um, I was thinking though, age is because, well, I can look up Gladys Cooper's actual age, but I'm like, she's 80 something.
It's a little hard to tell whether or not they've added to her existing um just textures in her face with makeup. It was a little difficult for me to tell,
Okay,
which is bad because,
she was in her
it's so close to
70s.
her.
Yeah, she was
Okay.
in her 70s. Okay, 1932, she would have been plus 12. I think 44. They weren't like a young couple when this happened. So
Mm-mm.
that's, I don't know. I mean, that's neither here nor there. Just, I guess in this kind of story, you like, in your mind, you're just thinking like young people, right? And then
Hmm.
but when you work out the math, you're like, actually, they're like my age or, at the time.
Yeah, and that I think is even more sad because who knows what their life was prior to that, but you get into your 40s and you're kind of like thinking is when am I gonna find the one, right? And so that's really it's really awful.
Yeah. So, um, anyway, yes, I get like we said, she's strong-willed, but I don't think she's deserving. I mean, I don't
Mm-mm.
think her little mistake that was, yeah,
It was an
it's
accident.
it's kind of weird to call her on that, even from just
Yeah.
beyond. The rules might be different, but it seems a little weird. I don't think she deserves that.
No, at least not now. She's not paying it's no penance for some thing she did that was wrong,
Again,
you
in
know.
Static, that guy gets what he wants in the end with his lost love, but it seems
Hmm.
like he's probably had a mental break to get there. Unless we're like
Yeah.
he's actually been transported by a Twilight Zone, I guess. But I was thinking it's more like he's now trapped in his head, living his fantasy.
Yeah.
Where,
No, her punishment really is just life.
yeah, it's like could Elva could be happily talking to him as we exit the episode too. But
Hmm.
you want to gut punch sometimes, and they wanted to gut punch here.
Yeah, they wanted to again, just see, no nagging. You know how many of the
Um,
viewers were like, "I'm sorry, Jim. I didn't mean to tell you to take out the trash."
I took out the trash. That's why I was 5 minutes late to this recording. I didn't get nagged yet. I remembered slightly too late. Tripometer, zero's not trippy, five's very trippy.
Whoa. I'm at like four with this. That's just a wallop. Like I said, you're completely in the supernatural realm. I mean, it's just there's no way to explain it. You're talking the unexplained, the unknowable. And when we get into that, which you can't even really picture in your mind, you're left with it. That's tribute to me.
Okay. I see. I was actually thinking little lower. I was thinking right down the middle, 2.5 for me.
Ooh.
Like visually, it's not that weird. Which I
Mm-mm.
guess for me, a lot of time I want a little bit of visual weirdness. A weird prop like we had in last week's episode,
You
right?
don't think
An
the
eye on the
image of
TV.
the image of the phone line into the grave, maybe I'm like in my head, it's more like chilling. But I guess trippy is a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess yeah. There, if this were the chillometer, I would go with your
Yeah.
four, no doubt.
I think it's the concept for
Well,
me.
the point of the question, it's vague and people take it how they want, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. No, I stay by what I picked, but I totally respect and understand why you'd go lower with it because especially compared with some of the visuals we've seen in other episodes. A Little Girl Lost, for example, was pretty high if I remember
yeah,
correctly,
yeah.
just because of
Also,
seeing
it's
the freaking
right,
Twilight Zone.
right. Also, it's not a. I feel like Night Call is not a weird episode. Just it's a
No.
ghost story, right?
Yep.
So, um, but then yeah. But then if we going back to Star Trek, Sub Rosa, where Beverly Crusher falls in love with her grandmother's candle. That's kind of another, like I think that one's trippy, but that has a
Whew.
ghost candle that's an alien, so.
Awesome. That's awesome. That is like a five. It's solid.
Generally not considered to be a good episode, but one I have watched more times than I want to admit.
Mm, sounds like it.
Um, it's so weird. Rolling down for this one today. Is there anything else you wanted to get out on Night Call before we hang up on it and tell it to
Um,
go away?
I'll just say that, like, if someone has never seen the Twilight Zone or never got into it, this is one of the episodes I'd play for them. You know, if they're at my house for like an hour and
Hmm.
they're just like, "Yo, show me some Twilight Zone, man. I know you're into it. Let me see one, right? One of your favorites. Play me one. This would be in there."
Okay, I think I still might defer to the Midnight Sun for me. That's just been my traditional choice for years.
Yeah, I would not want to get too heavy, but not go too light either. God,
Yeah.
it's so weird that I think about it so much, but I'm just, you know what I mean? But this is just lean and mean what the Twilight Zone does for me personally.
I might put this on as like a third episode for someone. I agree it is a good like capsulation of a certain corner of the Twilight Zone, but it's
Mhm.
not very propulsive, which if this were the first one, you might want a little bit more movement to
Yeah,
catch your attention. But then, once you get the basic gist, then this one is definitely it fits the bill for the Twilight Zone.
yeah. It's like, well, I want one that's not about World War One or two.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
really?
Then
I
you put
suddenly
on
have
the
no idea.
then you put on the seventh is made up of phantoms or ghosts or whatever it was. It's
Phantoms,
not,
yeah.
yeah, it's not World War One or two. Ha, it's a
Nope.
different war. I tricked you. It's
Yeah.
Civil War. You got some Civil War ones bopping
That's
around. Yeah.
true. That's true. Yeah.
Um. Well, I guess we will wrap this one up for today. If you'd like to go ahead and give the Gonzoriffic rap one more time.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, everyone. My name is Andrew Shearer. In addition to making movies with my friends, as Gonzoriffic, Gonzoriffic, that's, you can watch the movies on TikTok has a few, and YouTube has a few, and the Instagram has a few. Or you could buy if you're into physical media. Gonzorific.com also has a store. If you're not into any of that stuff, but might want to read a book that I published on Amazon, Everybodies, Everybodies. This is a book of interviews and nude photography, so that might interest you too.
That's an Amazon one still. Used to be. You can
Mhm.
Amazon that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Here it's Time Enough Podcast. Do rate and review where it's applicable. We do a lot of podcasting at podcastius.org. Talking about Planet of the Apes, talking about really good bad movies, talking about Pokemon, all these sorts of things. And I just put out a bit of music. It's trippy electronic music. I hope it's a 5 on the tripometer. It's a psychic utopia. You can find that at rovingsagemedia.bandcamp.com. Alrighty. I want you to go away. Just go away.
Who's on the line?
Not sure if that came through or not.
It don't matter. That
Okay.
was for me.
Okay. I'll hit the recording. Bye bye to all the peeps.